Hey guys, this is Amber Rain Davis from NotableInk.com, and today we are celebrating Altenew's 5th anniversary. I remember last year during their anniversary hop, I couldn't believe it was their 4th anniversary. I started card making a couple years ago and have always been so inspired by Altenew's products. Not only because I love flowers, but I originally got into Altenew because I'm not a strong colorist, and all of their layering stamp options helped me to be able to add a ton of color to my cards without the kind of fear of getting into coloring. So one of the other things that I really love about Altenew is it also pushes me to further my skill and hone my craft. And so today we're going to be doing some coloring with the Altenew artist markers. So if you follow me, you probably already know that teal is my favorite color, and in January I was able to snag a set of the artist marker set D, which also contains this teal set, which is the C-Store set. So what I've stamped down is several of the beautiful Peony stamps, and I'm sorry that my lighting is so direct that it's difficult to see the stamps on the page. And today's video is going to be a little different for me. So normally I do an instructional video and kind of explain everything. Today we're going to be doing some speed coloring, and I'll just talk a little about the coloring. So one of the things you may have seen me do at the very start was put another piece of cardstock underneath this stamped panel. The reason that I did that is because I find when I'm coloring with artist markers on my glass mat, and I don't know if this is like a real thing or not. You can see I got some stray ink on the middle of my card there. So that's really what drove the rest of my card design. So we'll talk a little more about that later. But for the extra piece of cardstock, so I find that if I use a lot of ink, like that petal had quite a bit of ink on it right there. So if I use a lot of ink and I'm really saturating the paper, if I am only working on my glass mat and I don't have an extra piece underneath, there's nothing to absorb that extra ink. So what I was finding when I was using Copic markers before I got my artist markers is that the color would bleed back up into my card panel and I'd start to get bleeding outside the lines. So that was really just my experience. I find if I put a separate piece of cardstock underneath the panel that I'm working on, it helps to absorb some of that extra ink if I'm being really heavy-handed, and I don't get bleeding outside the line. So you'll have to test it out for yourself. Again, I don't know if that's really what's happening. It's just been my experience, and if you're having trouble with bleeding and you're working on a glass mat, maybe give that a try. So I colored this first flower here, and then I found I needed to take a break from coloring. The reason for that is, so as I said in the beginning, I'm not a strong colorist, although I'm not going to call myself a beginner anymore. I think I've decided after I completed this card, I really was surprised at how well it came out. So I'm just going to be hard, but I'm not going to call myself a beginning colorist anymore. With this particular stamp set, these floral images are gorgeous, and I was so inspired by all the projects that came out when this was released because they were just incredible. You know, there was so much detail, you know, people watercolored with them, colored with markers, and I wanted to give it a try. I knew it would be a huge challenge, so when I colored this first flower, this is actually the only footage that I have, it took me an hour. It literally took me just short of an hour to color this flower, and I needed a good long break after that. And the reason for that is because it just kind of hurt my brain a little bit trying to figure out where all the shadows need to go. So that to me is kind of one of my biggest challenges with coloring, is especially if you're trying to, I mean, obviously this isn't a realistic flower because I don't think that there are flowers this color in nature. But, you know, I wanted to have more of a realistic look than a cartoony kind of look, and that's what I was going for. So that requires a little more effort in terms of your contrast, your shading, and what you're doing there. So it takes a good amount of focus. So really what I'm doing is I'm treating each petal as an individual petal and thinking about where the shadow needs to go. And then once I figure out where the darkest part is, I outline that with my darkest marker like you saw there, and then I come in with my other markers and blend it out. Now, one of the things that I've found with my Altenew artist markers that I do differently than with Copics, I go light to dark and dark to light. And so I will put down an entire layer of the lightest color and then go light to dark and then back down to dark to light. With my Altenew markers, again, I start with that darkest marker, kind of do an outline where my shadow is going to be, and then I bring in my other shades and blend that out. I'll add a little detail like you see there and blend that out. And to be honest, I have no idea why I do it differently. It's just, I find that I have better success that way. So I don't know. If you can try that out as well and see if it's any different for you. But so again, I'm just trying to figure out where are these shadows. And in the middle here, it starts to, as you know, as you guys can see, it's hard to see the lines there. And it starts to get a little more complicated and detailed in the middle. So one of the tricks that I'll do is I'll take the stamp packaging and overlay it so that I have a better idea of, is this petal curled? Is it folded over? Where does my shadow need to be? And that gives me a better visual of where I need to be putting those shadows. So that's something that you can try out. And it's interesting because I did this one, then I took like a week off, then I did another flower, I took another week off, and then I finished it up. And so my coloring does look a little bit different from flower to flower because I took those breaks in between. So here's the finished petal, and I just used some yellows and browns for the center there. You can see the rest of the stamping there, and I stamped it in Mountain Mist so that it would be a no line coloring effect because that color is just going to blend into the markers. And then to cover up that stray ink in the middle, I used the gradient stripe stamp set and lined up the stamp so that it would cover that stray ink. For the white areas that you see there, I just used my black artist marker and filled in those areas. And here you can see the finished card. For the sentiment, I used the Signature Words die set and cut out gold Mirror Cardstock and Black Cardstock from Altenew. And I just really impressed myself with how this turned out. I didn't think it was going to turn out this well. I initially did it as a challenge, and I'm so glad that I did. I definitely will be doing this again. Again, this is a different kind of video style for me, so if you're looking for more instruction with coloring, I will link a couple videos at the end that give more instruction on how to color and tips for beginning colorists as well. Be sure to follow along on our blog hop. I'll have a link to my blog post below, and like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook at Notable Ink. Thank you so much for joining me today, and have a great day.